It's vegan recipes with Pat and Emily.
Today on It's Vegan, I'm going to give you a taste of summer. How many of you think of banana splits for summer desserts? Well, today I'm going to show you how to make an ice cream pie that is a banana split pie. I'm going to prep the fruit for the banana split pie. Got a can of pineapple in its own juice, and I'm going to drain it, and I am catching that pineapple juice because I can drink it later. So we'll get back to this in a minute. I'm going to work with the bananas. I'm going to slice 2 ripe bananas. Next, I'm going to mash them. Because this pie is going to be served frozen, you want all of the fruit to be very, very small. So when you're eating it, it's not going to be a big hunkin' chunk of frozen fruit. Now that the banana is mashed up, I'm adding just a little bit of lemon juice, and I will mash that in with the bananas to keep it from browning. Now I'm going to scoop up the banana and put it on a plate. And this plate is about the size of the bottom of the pie crust. I'll be covering it and putting it in the freezer. I'm slicing up about 2 cups of strawberries. I'm going to cut off that green spot. Nobody's going to want to eat that. Now they're chopped, and I'm going to mash them as well. You should taste your strawberries and make sure they are very sweet. If they're not, this would be the time to sprinkle a little bit of sugar on. I have tasted these and they are fully ripe. You can see I'm trying to make a mash out of it. It just takes a few minutes. Right now I'm at about the end of mashing these up. And I'm looking for any piece that's a little too large. I want it very small. And by doing the mashing process here, it adds like a syrup when you're serving the pie, just like a banana split would have. Okay, that looks good. Now, scoop it up, and I'm going to put it on a plate, and I'm going to stick it in the freezer. It'll start partially freezing. It doesn't have to be 100% frozen. As we're building the pie, we'll just use it at whatever frozen state that it's at. The pineapple's been draining, but I want to squeeze out some extra liquid. In this case, it's pineapple juice. So I take a handful and I squeeze it, and I want it about this consistency. Put it on the plate. Okay, the pineapple's ready. I'm going to stick it in the freezer for a little bit, and soon we will start constructing the pie. I've covered these with saran wrap, and I want them to be in the freezer for a good 20 minutes before I start putting the pie together. I will be starting with a banana because when you make a banana split, you start with the banana. I also freeze the pie crust so that when I'm putting the ice cream in it, it will be cold. We're going to start assembling the pie. Today I happen to be using So Delicious soy milk vanilla ice cream. I often like to use Aldi's vanilla. It's a very tasty vegan ice cream also. I'm going to first start by getting the ice cream out of the container. Next, I'm going to need 4 layers of ice cream. So I'm cutting this down in half, and then we'll cut it in half again. These pieces are going to go back in the freezer. I'm slicing very thin pieces of ice cream. This is really a very simple pie to make, but you need time to let things freeze in between. And I don't totally freeze them, but I do let them get colder and firmer. Now with warm, clean hands, I'm flattening the ice cream, making sure that I have the entire bottom filled in. You can smooth it a little bit. Now we are ready to add the bananas. These aren't frozen, but they have been chilled. They were in the freezer, but I don't leave them in there long enough to get totally frozen. So you can see I'm just putting a thin layer, and I may not use all the bananas that I have. I don't want this too full. Again, before you serve this, it's going to be totally frozen. So that's why you don't want the layer too thick. It looks like I can use all of them. Okay, smooth it out. If I had any extra, I would just put it in my freezer for a smoothie. Put your plastic back on, and I would freeze this for at least 30 minutes before we go to the next layer of ice cream. It may even be an hour because I want this fairly firm. It's been about an hour. You can see this is firming up, so I'm going to put on one more layer of ice cream. A little bit from one of my other pieces of ice cream. So I'm going to use warm hands to smooth it out. Almost ready for the strawberries. Now, these strawberries got fairly frozen, so I can just slide them right on, pat this down. And because it's frozen, I'm going to just keep on working. Normally, I would put it back in the freezer, but the strawberries are certainly cold enough that I can go right to the next step. Each layer that you put on, the pie's going to get more and more frozen, so you can sometimes build it and add the layers without freezing in between each layer. Okay, I'm going to stick it in the freezer for about a half an hour. We are to our last layer of fruit and ice cream. This is the frozen pineapple. It has gotten frozen because each layer of the pie, I have kept this pineapple in the freezer. It stuck to the plate, but I'm going to try to lift it up as one piece and plop it on, press it down a little bit. Now if yours isn't frozen solid, not to worry, just get it on and put it over the top of your pie. Now I'm going to cut the last of the ice cream, and I'm working basically to get the pineapple covered. I may not have enough ice cream to fill all of this in, but you'll see, it's just going to be fine. It's even okay if you don't cover up all the pineapple. This is one of those desserts that you would need to start early in the morning so that you have time in between the fruit and ice cream levels for this to get firm or even freeze. And then when it's all said and done, you need to get the pie really frozen, so you may have to freeze it overnight. Again, I'm using warm, clean hands, and I'm just spreading the ice cream over the top. I'm going to try to smooth it a little bit, but I want you to get the picture. I have put the layer of pineapple down. It was fairly frozen, and then I've covered it with ice cream. Since this is still fairly cold because the pineapple was frozen, I'm going to pre-slice this pie, which when I actually go to serve it, it will help me get it out of the pie plate. So I'm carefully going all the way down, and because this is an ice cream pie and it needs to be served frozen, you want to be able to get it out of the pie plate. I'm being a little stubborn there. I'm just being careful. Something else that you can do, once this part of the pie has really frozen up, you could store it in something else so that when you were serving it, you could just pull out a piece, or if you were having company, each piece would be very easy to get out. And truly, if you were in a hurry, you could probably serve it immediately as long as this is still fairly frozen on top. I'll show you what I mean. I do prefer getting it really frozen, so you could pick up a piece if you had to. Back to the freezer. The pie is frozen, pretty solid, and you'll see what I mean with those pre-cuts being so helpful. And as always, the first slice might be tricky to get out. Going to loosen it and then get my spatula underneath there. And look at that, a perfect piece. The next thing that I do is I'm adding some hot fudge sauce, but if you didn't take the time to make the hot fudge sauce, you can always use something like that. Just gonna drizzle a little bit of chocolate on it, put some whipped cream, and a cherry. It's ready to serve. It is time for the taste test, and I know Emily, who's behind the camera, is going to want to jump in to taste it, but she'll have to wait. This is one of those desserts. The fruit is frozen, so you're just going to chip away at it. It's not going to be a dessert that you eat fast, but you're going to let it melt a little bit in your mouth and savor it. That is so delicious. I hope you give it a try. I think it's going to become a family favorite. This is one of those desserts that you should just keep in the freezer and pull out a piece every now and then, or have it ready when you have some unexpected friends drop by.
He also decided to make minis with a graham cracker crust. Thanks for watching.